Good evening, Zimbabwe. My name is Victor Mabuto. Welcome to Economic Forum, where we discuss all things economics that affect our nation of Zimbabwe. Today's guest is a familiar face from the smash hit TV series show Studio 263. Now she's a parliamentarian. In the studio, we have Honorable Tatenda Mavetera. Thank you for coming.
Hello, Victor. Hello, Zimbabwe. Thank you for inviting me to this show.
You are a women proportional representative in Parliament.
Yes.
For the interest of our listeners and our viewers, what does that mean?
Okay, what it means is that you are a member of Parliament. And when you are a member of Parliament, that is enshrined in our Constitution, which is the supreme law of the nation, on Section 119, where we have got roles that a parliamentarian is supposed to have. A member of Parliament, indeed, we also need to understand that we have got constituency MPs and non-constituency MPs. But overall, all of them, they are MPs. But of course, we also have got members of Parliament in the National Assembly and also in the Senate. So what we have to be doing is that we need to understand that we have got members of Parliament. Like you all know, a lot of people always say members of Parliament because you come from the National Assembly. But all of them are members of Parliament. But some are in the National Assembly and some are in the Senate. So all of them, they're members of Parliament. So when you're a proportional representative, you are actually chosen from a proportion of members of Parliament. You are actually elected, or maybe you're chosen from the political party that you represent, but you are supposed to be put on a party list. When you're put on a party list, what you're supposed to then do is to be able to then be elected into Parliament after some certain ranking is done, and then you then are able to then come into Parliament as a member of Parliament.
But look at constituency MPs, they have the onus of reporting back to the constituency. Now, as a proportional representative, do you report back to, say, women?
A lot of people think when you are a proportional representative MP, maybe a lesser MP. All of them, they're all MPs. But what then happens is that we need to understand that now on the composition of the CDF, what then happens is that the constituency MP has to then be the one who chairs. And then the PR MP then comes into that committee. What is actually there is that if you come to think of it, the PR MP actually has got a larger constituency, more than the constituency MP. Because if I look at the constituency that I represent myself, I've got Seke and I've got Chikomba that I need to be accounting to. But these are now jurisdictions that have been given from our parties, whereby now you need to be coming from Seke and Chikomba. So I'm a PR MP representing Seke and Chikomba. And then there we have got the constituency MP who only has got maybe one constituency. So now I have to go and report back to those 4 constituencies. So just think of that. So when I look at it, you need to then come back to the constituency. You still need to come back and also be able to practice what you're supposed to do. And again, even in Parliament, it's not only about just accounting. Even in Parliament, you are not a lesser MP. You still need to contribute just like another MP.
So why is it there's this misconception that people say that the PR MP is not as powerful as a constituency MP? Where does that come from?
It comes from what usually happens within constituencies. We need to understand that when a person is now being called as a constituency MP, one will feel that maybe probably they are more superior than the other. And also just because of them being the constituency MP and they know that they've been voted for, they will actually be expecting to be consulted as and when the other PR MP has to be coming in. So this is where the conversation comes, whereby now the constituency MP seems like they are more superior. So all you need to do is for you to be a bit aggressive. It also shows that at least you can also, you know what you're supposed to be doing, to be going back to the constituency and showing that you can prove it. I've seen a lot of PR MPs who are actually very popular in areas that they actually represent. And I think this is what is supposed to be happening. Let us show, even as women, you know, whenever I speak quite feminist. And I can say that as PR MPs, we need to show that we're capable and we need to show and dominate in these constituencies. I think that can also be very well. But of course, on the CDF, I think this is what we're talking about when we're going through the constitutional amendment number 2. We were saying that we need at least the structural program when it comes to PR MPs. We would hope that at least we could have an amount of money that will actually be given to the PR MP so that at least they can go back to the constituency. And after all, their constituency is actually greater than the constituency MP. So that alone shows that at least we needed some fund to be given so that when they go back to the constituency, they've got something to show. They've got something to say, at least you voted for me, you elected me to come and represent you. This is what I can bring you, then bring this, all these projects.
All right, on that note, let's cross over to a break and then return for our second segment on Economic Forum. Welcome to our second segment on Economic Forum. Today's guest is Honorable Tatenda Mavetera, and we're discussing the roles of PRMPs in the economy in Zimbabwe. So, we have 60 seats for women. Are they making any difference in Parliament in terms of women's issues, do you feel?
Yes, indeed, they're actually making a great change, because if you look at even the positions that even we have got 5 MPs, 5 ministers of state. If you come to think of it, this is an opportunity that has been given to members of parliament, which are also from the proportional representative seats, to also be able to get involved. I know a couple of the ministers of state which are actually PRA MPs. Of course, we've got some which are not, but the bulk of them actually are PRA MPs. So when we have got these 60 seats, there would not have been that opportunity for that member of parliament to have gone in or become a minister of state if it weren't for the PRA. And again, we also need to understand that these are opportunities that also get us involved. Even if you look at, come to think of even some of the amendments we have made in Parliament, we have got the 30% procurement quota, which has been set aside for us as young women, and also even for women in general. And again, we also have got the issue of the sanitary way, which was also pushed into existence because of the existence also of the PRA MPs. So to be honest with you, if it weren't for the 60 seats, the number would be so on the lower side. Because if you come to think of it, we have got 84 members of parliament, and of the 84, you would say 60 are PRA. So what it meant was, if we didn't have those 60, what it virtually means is that we've got less numbers when it comes to representation in parliament for the women. So to be honest with you, I don't want to lie. I know we've had a lot of outcry from a lot of women out there saying, why did the MPs in Parliament agree to the extension of the women's quota? If you look at that provision only allowed us to say we needed to extend the women's quota. It was not a matter of us being there to look at 50-50. The conversation was not on 50-50, but the conversation was on the extension of women's quota. So what we had to do was we had to vote for it, because there was no way we could go ahead and say we need to refuse the extension of the women's quota, yet we didn't have anything which was on the table when it comes to inclusion of women. So to be honest with you, I feel that 60 seats was very, very helpful, and it helped women. It helps women to be there. Even myself, I'm an assistant speaker in Parliament. If it weren't that I had come in on PR, I would have got that opportunity. So what it means is that I represent women, and also I represent young people. I represent the youth, because I'm still below the age of 35. So just alone that, it shows that at least if it weren't for the women's quota, would not be involved in all these positions. Even when it comes to legislation which is pro-women, we can only be able to foster it when we are a number.
So does it mean that women in parliament, regardless of the party they belong to, can actually vote on the same thing? I mean, are there any instances in your current term of parliament where women from across the political diversity have voted on the same thing?
Yes, we have. Even if I can tell you, on this extension of women's quota, we had to vote from all parties. And again, we also realized that at the end of the day, I've always said, this is a conversation I've always said, there are times that we always have to be speaking, not because we belong to a certain political party, but we speak because we're women. And I think this is what we're supposed to be doing, whereby we put politics aside and we say now we need to speak from an all-inclusive agenda. I think we have seen what even Her Excellency, the First Lady of Zimbabwe, does. You know what Amai Mnangagwa does? She goes on and she robs in everyone. And this, I think, is an all-inclusive agenda. And even what the President does. The President is the President of Zimbabwe. So when we look at it, when he is representing, when he's speaking, he speaks as the President of Zimbabwe. So I think this is what we're supposed to do, like what His Excellency, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa does. He also embraces everyone as well. So this is what we're supposed to be having, whereby we all coalesce and we all speak with one voice because we are Zimbabweans. Because if always we are going to be thinking political, then it means every now and then we are always acting like what politicians do. Yet in actual fact, we're supposed to be talking more on development, and then politics comes at the end. For we believe that the moment that we develop, even the politics, everyone will want to rush to politics. Because if you look at what young people think, everyone would want to get a career in politics now. Why? Because they think that is where everything comes. But all we're saying is that we need to look at development. The moment that our country becomes developed, like what the thrust that His Excellency has, the moment that our country becomes developed, there is no way that everyone would want to get a career in politics. But you're actually thinking that if you look at what happens in Sweden, you see that the politicians are actually the least paid. MPs are the least paid. No one would want you. When you go there, you're actually a servant leader. And I believe this is where our country is going to, whereby MPs have to be servant leaders. Every politician has to be a servant leader. They need to represent the interests of the people.
But the dispute here is that they're saying already Parliament is bloated with 210 MPs. Then you want to make 60 seats permanent for women. Then you want to add an additional 10 seats for the youth. I mean, what's your position on the 10 seats that the youth are going to be given if the second amendment is to be passed?
Yes, on the 10 seats, I always say we don't need to say 10 seats. They're actually 20. We have got 20 seats. We have got 10 seats already that are there at the PR. We have got 10 seats which are supposed to be going to young women according to the Constitutional Amendment number 2. So we have got 10 seats there that are going to the young people below the age of 35. Then we have got 10 seats again that are supposed to be there for all the people, the youth, so below the age of 35. So we've got 20 seats. So of the 20 seats, I think this is a starting point. Young people have not been prohibited in getting into the other 210 seats. They've got that. And besides, we've got the numbers as young people. Since we have always capitalized on the demographic dividend that young people have. So because of that, I feel that we of course, as much as we can go to the 210 seats, we've been given those 10 seats, and we need to appreciate and applaud His Excellency for coming up with that. Those 10 seats, those 20 seats, I think they're very, very important, making sure that young people are also included. Affirmative action is also good in the long run because we know that we have got secured seats that are there, which will also represent the interests of young people.
Will those 20 actually make an impact and influence the other MPs in decision making and in driving policy?
Yes, they will. Because you need to understand something. When you are in something, you can actually be able to create the change that you want. It's now about the strategy that the young people are supposed to then be able to employ when they're in Parliament. I'll tell you, I've managed to move the establishment of a youth caucus, and that was under the influence of what young people were saying all across the political divide, to say there is need for us to establish a youth caucus. And I managed to do that in Parliament. I moved a motion to say there is need for us to establish a youth caucus, whereby we have MPs who will be pro-youth, who are going to coalesce and look and also then be able to also advocate for youth policies. Of course, we have got the Portfolio Committee of Youth, which is also there. But also, within the Second Republic, we've managed to establish a youth caucus. So that is enough to show that at least even our government is pro-young people. So as I can see, I think that those 20 seats, they add. Because when they are there, it's better. It's not good when you're outside. But these young people, they will be in the whole, in Parliament. So when they're in Parliament, they need to then make sure that at least they lobby, they advocate, and then they bring all those young people and all those other people who are even older to their side. Like what we did on the establishment of the youth caucus. We also had to implore people from across the political divide, and also we had to implore to coerce every other person, even the older people, to say this is a youth centric program. Why can't you also be able to rally behind us? And they debated pro it, and it managed to sail through. So we are happy that at least now, as members of Parliament, we've got also the establishment of a youth caucus.
But don't the youth in Zimbabwe feel like there's a disconnect between them and the leadership right now?
There isn't any disconnect. What we need to understand is that as young people, whenever we have got a program that is set for us, why can't we embrace it? I don't think it would really make sense for us to then be thinking that there's a disconnect when we've got opportunities that are there for us. We have got those 20 seats, we also have got 210 seats which are there. Why can't we then coalesce within ourselves as young people all across Zimbabwe to say, now let's vote for ourselves, let's vote for us as young people when it comes to us getting into becoming members of Parliament. And then what it means is that the numbers will also be able to increase. So I think this is a conversation that we need to do as young people.
Let us leave it at that for the moment as we cross over into another break and come back for our third and final segment. Welcome back to our third segment of Economic Forum. My name is Victor Mabuto. Today my guest is Honorable Tatenda Mavetera, talking about youth, talking about Parliament, talking about women. And now talking to her in a different capacity as the National Chairperson of the Young Women for Economic Development. I want to ask you, what is Young Women for Economic Development? Young Women for ED.
Okay, thank you very much. Young Women for ED is a group of people, a group of young women who are there to marshal and propagate for empowerment of government initiatives to young people. And what we want to do is for us to be able to have an all-inclusive agenda, which then looks at making sure that at least when we are supposed to be talking of government empowerment or even looking at economic empowerment, we're looking at us as young people also getting involved. Of course, there's always been a conversation whereby a lot of people think maybe things are actually given on partisan lines. But I think as young women for ED, we are happy that His Excellency said he's going to support every initiative that we're supposed to be doing, and he's also going to be making sure that at least as young women, as much as we've assembled, we'll then be able to make sure that at least we access any economic development projects or initiatives that are there in the country for us also as young women.
So anybody can be part of the Young Women for ED, regardless of political affiliation?
Yes, so long as you're below the age of 45. Every young person who is below the age of 35 or 45, they are then supposed to be, because according to IPU, International Parliamentary Union, it says young is below the age of 45. So we also had to tap into that. So everyone is supposed to be part of that. We are saying that every young person, despite from which political party that you come from, we would want you, we have got this all-inclusive agenda. We have seen it even from the First Lady. She has got an all-inclusive agenda when it comes to development. And this is exactly what we want to do. And also even the president said, as young women, I'm going to support every initiative that you want. Get yourselves together from whatever, be it from any political party. I would also want also to be having this pro-young women approach, whereby the president says he wants to be approaching it in such a way that he also be looking at everyone despite of their political affiliation. And then we are there to be going on to His Excellency and saying, please, can you please be able to assist us in this way? And there he will be, to make sure that at least he can also mitigate when it comes to issues to do with that disconnect of people thinking that maybe there hasn't been much projects also coming to them. So we're saying that despite of anyone's political affiliation, you can then be able to access this. And also whatever programs that the government is also doing, we also need to make sure that everyone is also supposed to then be able to get involved in them. And we're happy that His Excellency is also supporting every initiative that we're doing.
So what's in the pipeline as Young Women for ED?
What we want to do is, for us, all our programs are based on 4 clusters, which talks of financial inclusivity, whereby we're saying that we're going to be looking at projects and also finding out what programs that we can then be able to get in line with what government is also doing, so that at least they can also be accessible. And then the second will be also the awareness of government programs, and also looking at even philanthropy, us going ahead and also finding out what also the human aspect of things, what other programs we can also do, which can also change people's lives from the philanthropic side, and also looking also at finding out that at least within ourselves we can then be training ourselves, also acquiring leadership skills, and also getting into business. There's always been a lack when it comes to also women's involvement in proper formal business. So we also need to get this platform whereby we can also be able to say we also need to access that 30%, which has been said in the Procurement Act. We also need young people to be also accessing this. So that platform, we are saying that we're going to be getting young people all below the age of 35, also having that platform outside what also political parties are also going to be able to do. But we believe that we're going to be a group of young women who also assemble, and then we speak with one voice as young women, and also be able to help each other grow, to help each other also get involved in the economic trajectory of this country.
So what are the struggles that young women in business and in the economy face?
The main issue is more on the financial aspect. We have robbed in Empower Bank, we have robbed in Women's Bank. All these 2 banks, they've been banks which are there, which are also supposed to make sure that at least they give loans. But they are not only the 2 that we have. We're also hoping to even getting any other people that would also be coming on board, even other institutions that also be coming on board to help and capacitate young people of Zimbabwe.
Let's go back to the aspect of saying banks will be able to give loans to young people. There's a certain bank you mentioned in which it was saying that it could give loans to young people, but banks require collateral. And young people don't have collateral. So how do they get over that hurdle?
Thank you very much. That is a question that we asked one of our partners, which is Empower Bank. We asked them, and then they say that when we look, we've got 5 C's that we look at. And of the 5 C's, we've got capacity, we've got coherence, we've got capabilities. They mentioned all the 5 C's. They said we can then be able to resort to this one if you're not going to qualify from these 4. But if you've got the capacity, you show that at least you're able to, you have convinced us, we have got the confidence in you that you're able to do this. Then we can then be able to give you, not because you have given us any collateral, but when they get to collateral, it then becomes becomes the ultimate or at the end. But I believe that as young people, then you then can fall short of all those other four. So it then becomes the end. But as I heard them, they told us that you don't need to be having that role. So I think this is what we need to understand, that we have been given this opportunity whereby you can actually be able to access loans, but not only loans. If you then be able to get even a project, you then afforded, maybe let's say you're given a machine or you're given anything which is not only liquid cash, you can then be able to have a start off. I think this is where the conversation should be, whereby we're saying, of course, young people do not have capacity when it comes to collateral, but there is a platform that is given by the Second Republic whereby we can see that you can then be able to access these loans without any collateral.
But what about the issue in which you're advocating for young people, for women, but the youths in Zimbabwe are facing drugs, there's high levels of crime, and there's obviously the albatross, high unemployment. What will you do as Young Women for ED to address these ills that we're facing as young people?
Good. Let me talk of the one that you last said, which is the issue of unemployment. We need to be changing our mindset from us being employed, but for us to be entrepreneurs, for us to actually be employing people. So from us, from the perspective where we come from, we want to be instilling this issue of saying women have to be entrepreneurs, they need to get involved in business. So this is where the angle that we're going to be doing. So we want to be getting trainings, we want to be getting even funding for young women so that at least they can also get involved. And then to those that want to go to work, we have always talked about this even in Parliament, to say we have got certain initiatives that government has put in place, like for example the youth tax incentive, that's the YET. The YET which was actually introduced in the last budget to make sure that at least it could also increase employment of young people. So on that one, we'll then be asking which one is the proportion that you've put aside or set aside for young people. There are also others that want to be employed. And of course, we also have to be, we have got young professionals that are also going to be coming into place, but also they also need to be capacitated on how they're going to be training or conducting themselves in the employment places that they're also in. So it's not only to do with that. So of course, in terms of projects, also in terms of us, even skills training, in terms of also just making sure that at least within us, we will be able to be economically emancipated. This is the conversation that we are hoping to be having on Young Women for ED.
So why is there a disparity between the population of women, which is around 52%, and women's participation in the economy? Women are only contributing just under 30% in terms of participation in the economy. What's the problem there?
The problem has been because of patriarchy. And I will speak from a social perspective, whereby you should know that patriarchy has hindered a lot of indulgence when it comes to men even getting involved because of all these sexual harassment issues that also come into play. And also you would come to think that also even men, they've always victimized a lot of women. So because of that, it has also then been not a safe space for some women. But of course, we're happy that the new dispensation is availed such a fora whereby young women can speak as women. And then there we are. It's not only Young Women for ED which is there. We also have got a lot of other initiatives which are there, which also propagate for the inclusion of women. So what we need to understand is that there we are. We have not been included, but all we want is for us to have this safe space, which we feel that as women we can then be able to speak to ourselves and say this is where we are as women, and we need to then be able to represent each other and also be able to empower each other as women.
Well, that was an exciting show today with our guest, Honorable Tatenda Mavetera. You might know her. Her face is familiar. She used to be on the hit series Studio 263, but now she's a parliamentarian. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for tuning into Economic Forum. We're discussing the impact of parliament in terms of women, in terms of youth, and in terms of the economy. So from me, myself, Victor Mabuto, and the team behind the scenes, I'd like to say thank you, Zimbabwe. Good night.